So welcome everyone to the first 2025. Oh my God, are we already 25? Strategy webinar. I do these on a regular basis, about once a month or something, to talk about developer portal strategy, like some. There's always some basic framework, and then some new things that are that I'm currently discussing with people in the podcast or that are top of mind at the moment. For a couple of episodes of this webinar, we've been talking about maturity models, and then that evolved into a value compass. So this one will start with that. Also, I think there's quite some people that joined from the DevPortal Awards, which means that not all of you are in an enterprise context. So I'll differentiate a little bit from that. And yeah, so if there's any questions, feel free to pop something into the chats. That's how it's called, yeah, the in-call messages interface, and then I'll get to that. I'll peek in once in a while to see if there's a question, and then there'll be more time for questions at the end also. Okay, so let's get started. First, a very short word about Pronovix. So Pronovix is a developer portal specialist company. We build developer portals that evolve with the companies we work for. So we don't have a singular product that's just, there's just one thing, take it or leave it. We work with our customers to create a portal that specifically fits to their needs. And that is also, I think, very close to the reality of a developer portal team. That's the reality of a developer portal team that might be so that might be custom building something, or maybe you're evaluating how you should be building a portal, and hopefully this will be useful for you. We organize a couple of things. As I already said, I think most of you came here because of the DevPortal Awards. That's an award we organize every year. We also organize a conference series. We're still figuring out exactly what conferences we'll do this year, but I'm really looking forward to our next AI the Docs conference, which is like a specialized conference on the intersection of APIs, AI, developer portals, and documentation. But yeah, stay tuned for more information if you're interested in any of this. Also, go have a look at our website. We've got a lot of content up. I want to start my story by talking a little bit about, what we're trying to do, and then how that translates in the story about developer portal strategy and developer portal maturity and all of that stuff. Because obviously, as a company, our goal needs to be to help our customers to get return on investment. But at Pronovix, our mission is to grow and help grow, and it's not about necessarily growing in revenue or something like that. Of course, that's nice. No, it's primarily about helping the people that are working with us, both inside and outside, to grow and to develop. And that's just taking my phone. That's a little deeper. And that means that for us, what's more important even still than ROI is to help our champions to succeed. So people that work with us, we want them to be successful and to grow in their career inside of the organizations they work for. So yes, it's the company paying the bill, but it's the people that we work with that ultimately we want to make successful, and then the company will also be successful, obviously. But there's a problem here, because what we've seen often happen with teams when they come talk with us about their developer portal is that a typical developer program has this little bit myopic focus, meaning that often what we see when people come to us asking about developer portals, they'll be very, very busy with developer experience. They'll already be looking a little bit forward to operational maturity, But that is like the two core focuses. When we get a requirements list, often it will be very heavy on developer experience features and on things to help to accelerate the publishing of documentation. And anything else is kind of like pushed to the future. So what we end up with often is a story like this. It's like, yeah, so first we want to focus on developer experience, make it easier to use our APIs. Then, once we're a little bit more mature, we'll work on automation. Like, how can we make it easier to approve access? How can we make it easier to publish APIs on our portal? And then someday, maybe, who knows when, when we get to it, we'll also think about how we're going to make money with our APIs, or how our APIs are going to provide value to the company. And this is like an afterthought that typically it really, I think this is now changing, but for a very long period, this was like people saying like a bunch of developer experience and operational features that they would ask for specifically, and then they'll say like, oh yeah, and can you do monetization? We don't need it yet, don't worry, but we want to make sure that you can do it, because probably we'll have to do that someday. And that's how most of the teams, it really is striking how frequently this is what we get when we start talking with customers. And this leads to the problem, because what we have seen is that the teams that are only bottom-up developer-led, where purely the focus is on only making the developers happy, and we don't really care too much about the executives or about strategic value, don't necessarily result in a successful developer program, because at some point the executives no longer care about APIs, and then they start defunding the program, or they stop investing in the program, and then little by little, program APIs don't go away, but it's now part of IT, and the people. Well, it's one of those areas where costs are being squeezed. What we have seen, though, is that there are customers that are really successful, and what they do different is that they are from a very early in the program, they start thinking about how can we get our executives to care about APIs? How can we help them to understand APIs? How can we make APIs relevant to the whole organization and how the organization works? It can be in different ways. It can be, doesn't have to be towards the customers, could be towards partners, could be an internal developer platform potentially. If your organization has a lot of IT and you have a strong champion in the executive suite that can explain this is part of how we operate. But if it's not part of the core business to be an IT shop, even if you have a lot of developers, it does not necessarily mean that on the long run this is going to stay successful. So what we have seen is that to be long-term successful, you need to be thinking about business alignment from day one, so that you can get strategic business value very early on in the program. Like how can you really contribute to the outcomes of your business in a way that is contextual to how your organization works. So highly successful API teams have this early strategic success, and because without strategic business alignment, even if you are providing return on investment for executives, this is just boring. It's like APIs, maybe your management team changes over the years, and like new people come in, and as always, when new executives come in, there's like okay, what am I going to do different from my predecessors? And then and if your program is boring, if it's just an IT thing, then why would significant budgets be spent on that? And then your team might come under pressure, the budgets might come under pressure, and your ability to do meaningful work might come under pressure. So to get defunded, I think key is to be looking for value stories. Like how can you tell a story about your API program that your executives care about. Do that exercise. Try this out. And yes, it could be about cost savings. But that cost savings, once they've been done, they become boring. So it's more about an area where your API program keeps producing new ways in which it creates competitive advantage or lasting competitive advantage. And like, what are those stories that you can be telling? And go look for those. Um, um, Tell those stories to your management, tell those stories to your executives, make sure that the whole organization knows why the API program matters, and keep telling that story, because that's the way to be successful in the long run. So this way of thinking about it is actually wrong. The better way to think about how to address, if you're starting out with a development portal or a program, better way to think about it is to first start looking for bright spots, and then to do the work that needs to be done, to develop experience and operational value, and then to get to strategic value in the long run. And what I mean with bright spots, this is something, I don't remember what book it was exactly, but it was a change management book I read a little while ago. The core idea was that when you're trying to change your organization and the behavior of your organization, you can't change everybody at the same time. You need to go look for some team that is especially excited about what you're doing, that is really working together with you, and then to really help them to be successful. And then with that success, to tell a story to the rest of the organization that helps to show why also they should be participating in your program, and why they should be investing in being good citizens of your API program and your developer program. So then another question after the if you don't yet have these executive stories, do you already provide strategic value? Can you already point at an area where you say, like, well, here, like, we're really make a big difference? And if you don't have that yet, do you already have teams that are really working together with you to like start telling that story, at least with that initial team, of the value that you're providing? And then instead of focusing on return on investment, which is potentially also fairly boring, to look at what is the cost of not acting, what is the cost of not having a developer portal that is successful, and how do you get people on board for that? Let's make it more concrete, because it's all very abstract, and I'll make it a little bit more concrete. So we developed this value compass. Originally, we thought, or I thought, this was a maturity model with 3 dimensions. But then as we started further developing it, we realized that this is not a maturity model, because a maturity model has like different practices where you have like different patterns of over different areas where you've developed certain practices that help you to execute really well against the groups of practices that are important for your organization, like security or API design and things like that. So when we continue to look at this model, because I know that this is important, what we realize is that actually it's a value compass that helps our customers to balance out, or when we talk with customers, and you can use this even if you're not a customer, but it's a lens through which you can look at your program and to think about it, like, okay, are we providing developer experience? How are we helping with automation? And then also, how are we providing business alignment? And to think about all 3 in every single step that you're taking, like on every sprint, maybe not every sprint, but on a discrete period of time, that you're not only focusing on one of these aspects, unless that is already a strategic interest for your organization, and people higher up actually care about APIs at this moment But even then, you probably want to be looking for some way to become more contextual to the actual operation of your organization. Developer experience, I don't think I need to explain this to this audience. Basically, how can you make it easier to consume your APIs? What are the different features that accelerate onboarding? You know all of that stuff. Key thing that is maybe not as obvious is that you might want to, well, especially if you're buying an API management solution, is to think about your developer portal not as your API portal, like your REST API portal, but to think about it as truly a developer portal that spans across the different technological domains that you might have. So that developer experience becomes a function for your organization rather than like some feature of the different technology stacks that you've bought. Practically, that means that your portal probably needs to be able to publish all the different types of documentation that you might have, the different types of interfaces that you have that are being used by whichever developer audience that you're targeting. And that your catalog needs to grow with your program. Like maybe if it's an external facing portal, you might start with just a few, then you might have a lightweight catalog and it might evolve and become more complex in some sort of faceted search or something like that. One example from our customers is Scheffler. We've got a case study about it on the website. I am highlighting this one because they have both REST APIs and async APIs, which is something that normally, or I think it's changing now, but didn't used to be combined very often. Typically, you would have an API management solution for your REST APIs. You would have a messaging stack for your messages and your async APIs, and then these would be two separate things, and that bringing them both together can help to improve findability and discoverability across those implementation domains, so that you can start focusing on your actual functional domains rather than the technology stacks that are crossing into these different domains you have in the organization. Second dimension is operational maturity. I kind of hinted at this already a little bit, but these are all the things that you're doing to make it easier for people to publish documentation and for people to make it easier to manage API access requests and things like that. Things that make it less expensive to run an API program, and to also increase adoption of your API program. Key here is that we see that organizations, this is different for startups. If you have an API product that you're publishing to customers, that's another story. But if you're an organization that already exists and where you have to build out an API program, then probably have like a Confluence wiki or something like that, where you have a whole lot of documentation, very, very detailed, very, well, depending on how well your governance works on across your wiki, but it's kind of like a contradiction in terminus that a wiki is meant to be permissive, where you can just add something without having to worry too much about how the information is structured. So it's very permissive, just like Doxys code, like publishing documentation as Markdown in your code repository is typically also very permissive. But then how do you turn that less constrained set of information into something that is well-defined and that is well-structured and that is going to help people to find their way to maybe deeper information, like provide an interface that gives you access, or people that might not know where to look for information, that gives them access to start looking for it throughout the other documentation that you might have. And then the way we talk about this is to see the developer portal as a publishing interface rather than purely documentation sites or a catalog or something like that, but where you are publishing a curated set of documentation, maybe a derivative of your documentation that makes it easier for people to go and find information, and then like find their way back to the more detailed information, or the person who might be able to answer a question that is not yet documented. Practically here, we work with like two authoring processes. We have got the CI/CD authoring that allows you to automatically push documentation into your portal. We normally adapt that to how our customers work with documentation. And then we have a CMS-based authoring. Like if you're just getting started, that's the easiest. Just author inside of the content management system. And that then helps you to access control who gets access to what exactly. But it's that publishing process that's important here. The other side of operational maturity is this authorization step. It's like how do you, first of all, how do you decide who gets access to what documentation? Are all your docs public? In a lot of organizations that doesn't work. There's a whole subset of documentation that should not be public, or you often have like mixed sets that are, for a couple of months they're not public, like a sort of like a private alpha or beta modes where only select partners can see the documentation. And then later they get published, or some organizations that just say, actually, our docs are not published at all. You have to be a partner or customer to be able to get access, and you have to prove that you should be able to get access to the documentation. That's one step. But then next to that, there's also the authorization of access to the interfaces. How do you request access for an API? And how do you make that process as streamlined as possible? Because most of the API management solutions are very like they have a very simplistic model for this, where basically you just have give me the name of your app, tell me what APIs you want to get access to, and maybe give a little bit of explanation of why you want to get access, and that gets submitted for the request. But often then you need a lot of back and forward afterwards for legal purposes, getting contract signs, to check out like what is it exactly that people want to do in your APIs. Should they get access for that explained purpose? Is this a competitor that's trying to use your APIs against you? Is this a business case where you actually want to cream off some of the value and capture some of the value for your organization? Stuff like that. That's the capturing of that information that helps you to decide who should get access at what price. That can be a really important part of that operational maturity that you can build into your portal. Going forward with the more and more things getting automated, this is going to become more and more important, because right now there's a clear distinction between how do you call it? I forgot that one, but the runtime of the API, which is just a proxy getting the right credentials and the right key and just giving access, and the management layer, like it's a different time scale. So there's a time scale where you request access for an app that you're creating, and there's a time scale where the app is like just doing the actual API calls. That time scale difference is going to shrink as probably soonish, or who knows how AI plays out. But as we start getting like throwaway applications, that time scale is going to shrink and come closer and closer together, so that the approval time scale can't be something that takes lots of time. That has to become something that can be also potentially automated and accelerated. And to be able to do that, you need to have contextual information capture. Like what information do you want to get from a customer to be able to decide what kind of validation you want to do, and things like that. Practically, what we do for this is we've got this flexible approval workflow system inside of the content management system that lets you set up different approval flows for different APIs, and then also potentially can be used for multi-gateway and things like that. yeah, multi-gateway, also mentioned, and multi-step processes for approvals. Similarly, when you're publishing documentation, you can also have approval flows where somebody needs to review the documentation. Potentially, the writer could be an AI, we'll see, but you could have also a centaur like AI human combined workflows where people are doing part of the job and AI is doing part of the job, and you have a human, still have a human in the loop to make sure that the documentation is right. Where you get these combined flows that can help to create consistent documentation across your landscape. Practical example of operational maturity from our customers, from our use cases, is C3. They're not in our use cases, but we have a video up about like from a little while ago when we did a presentation with them at I think one of our conferences, where we explain how they have a system that is generating documentation based on how it's configured, and that gets ingested in the developer portal and then exposed together with a whole bunch of other documentation. It was a very, very nice, interesting story. Okay, third one is this business line that I already talked about. And this is like the how will you help to create, protect, market, and capture value. And this is highly contextual. It needs to be something that is where your portal really needs to adjust to your business case. Are you working on a partner API? It's very different than when you're working on like an internal API program or a customer API program. And how will you adjust the portal to the needs of those different audiences, and then also help to not only fulfill the needs but also maybe to create the needs because documentation is one of the best search engine optimized pieces of content. Like you get a lot of detail about how to do things in your documentation that can help with getting people into your organization and then maybe find your company because you've got documentation that describes how to solve a specific problem that somebody has. And then your dev portal can become a differentiation tool that is helping your company, however that is, if that is in the platform layer, if that is in the cost layer, if it's about automation, if that is in the platform layer, which is about creating reusable assets that accelerate innovation and the development of new products, or if that is in the differentiation layer where you are creating API products, or you're creating different interface products, or you have a place where people can go and look for solutions that are combining different APIs to address specific use cases. Wherever that is in your organization stack, that you're playing a key role, and it could be maybe even in more than one place, wherever that is, how is that different from the rest of the world? And how can that make your company excel in competition, while still collaborating with others, while still learning with others, but where you're using APIs to create a competitive edge for your organization. Practically, tools you'll need for things like that are things like very good access control for documentation. So you can say, this partner get access, that API, nobody should see except for that one company that actually is a special partner that we should give access to it. Maybe things like that. Maybe only customers get access and so on. Practical example, this is not about access control, but practical example of this more business alignment is customer KBC. They have got a business solutions catalog next to their integrations catalog. Integrations catalog is where the APIs live. The business solutions basically describe different use cases that they have different types of interfaces for. And it's not only APIs that they describe, but also QR codes, partner solutions, and a couple of other things. So in short, you need all three types of value for lasting success. And if you are not yet So I would like to encourage you to think about how do you create strategic value for your business right now. Uh, it will make a huge difference. You need to know some teams I've talked with have very strict mission statements, and that they can't go outside, and they can't easily go into more strategic areas, but then still they can focus on how does the API program and developer portal create an incremental change, create something that is worth talking about, that is worth a good story for the organization, that you can then socialize in the organization. Because if you don't have the three dimensions, you will not create lasting value, and you won't have lasting success. And as I already explained, all of these three are contextual. There will be differences between organizations in how they can do developer experience. Very practical example: if you're, can I use that publicly? I'll anonymize it. But if you have an API that's for example, if you're providing email services, if you have an email sending service, then you could, for example, have free API calls as long as it's to your own email address. And that would be an easy way to get people started without having to request like any credit card information or anything like that. So you can really reduce the friction that is preventing people from trying things out. But if you are providing identity, like if this is about a service that is helping you to verify identity, then probably you can't do that easily. And maybe you need to be more strict, and maybe you have to know what company is this exactly, who is this person, can I actually trust them with this data? But that is going to create like a different context that you need to think about and that you need to adjust to with developer experience. The same thing with operational maturity, depending on how your organization works, depending on the profiles that work in your organization. Do you have very technical profiles in your company? Is everybody developer? Then you're going to have very different operational maturity practices that you can apply. If you have a lot of business people, you'll need another set of operational maturity practices that you need to apply. So that's also contextual. But the most contextual is definitely the business alignment, because this actually depends on the identity of your company. What is it that you do to play in the market? How do you distinguish yourself? How do you create value as a company? And then how can you, as an API program, contribute that? So all three are contextual. And this is where enterprise companies, but also startups, I think, they need a developer portal, unless a developer portal for you is just an infrastructure, unless you, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's just a place to list your APIs. But if that is not the case, if you are looking for success as an owner of a developer portal, then you will need to be thinking about how can you adjust your portals to your specific organizational context, and how can you keep adjusting your portal to your organizational context as your organization matures. And here comes a problem, because almost by definition, the developer portal products that are in the market are built for a unified set of requirements. It's just to address a common denominator across different organizational needs, and not necessarily to address specific needs for your organization. You might get lucky, and maybe all you need is some content to provide the contextualization of your portal. But unless that is the case, you might need something that is going outside of what is just out of the box from these existing tools. And then you get to the question, it's like, should you build in-house or should you buy a product? Or how do you do that? And um, uh, I, some of my colleagues, I like bringing this. I don't know who knows about Wardley mapping. Can you can you? I think you can give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you know about Wardley. Can you give thumbs up if you know about Wardley mapping? Have you heard of this? Thumbs up if you do. Thumbs down if you don't. Yeah. Okay. Cool. You're gonna like this, or this should be interesting. Um, Simon Wardley is a British. Yeah, he's well. I won't define him, but or he used to be CEO of a company, and as CEO, he was responsible for creating the strategy for his company, and he went looking like what do people do when they create strategy for their business. And then when he started looking at the strategies of other businesses, what he saw was basically bullshit bingo, which is basically, we're going to be agile, we're going to be clouds, we're going to do AI. There were just a whole bunch of buzzwords replicating what everybody else was doing at the moment. A lot of organizations started doing APIs this way, but and he was like, this does not make sense because how can that be a strategy? A strategy, by almost by definition, needs to be about how are you different from the other companies so that you can compete better. And then when he went looking further, he was also reading Sun Tzu, and then in Sun Tzu there's this the art of war. Yeah, that's the one that he was mentioning. There's this idea that you need to be aware of your environment and how what's happening around you, so that you can best take advantage of your environment to create a strategy that's contextual to what you need to do. If you're familiar with the Stoic saying, "The obstacle is the road," it's the things that are around you that tell you how you need to adjust, how your company needs to evolve to become better, or how your team needs to evolve to become better. So, but how do we know what is like the weather or of the world today, like for our business? Like, how do we know in what context we are currently acting? So he came up with this idea of mapping the value chain against the maturity of individual technologies. So when you see a value chain, like this, the server room, compute, API management, APIs, you can see like these are more like a server room is normally custom built. The compute, probably you have like a custom built operation system. API management, you might have bought a product that you're running on top of your compute. And then your APIs, probably you are custom building it, even if you're trying to turn them into products. For you, they are custom built. And then there's a developer, like the customer, that is consuming it. Normally, this would be a customer, but for APIs, it's typically a developer. So this is the value chain. And what he started exploring is like, how do these evolve? And what are the changes that are happening? Are there any blockers that are preventing certain parts of the value chain to evolve? And a really interesting thing with this is that you can see that there's a drive for industrialization. So like all technologies start as like Genesis, for example, electricity. Genesis would be French people playing with zinc and copper and dead frog legs, and seeing like electricity does this weird stuff. Custom built would be people actually starting to build batteries or starting to build generators from scratch, where they already know what they're doing. There's a group of people that actually know what works, and they can already derive some value from it, but it's still quite expensive to do something. Product is where you're buying a generator, And then commodity is the electricity network where you can just plug in and you have a standard. And the interesting thing is that most technologies evolve from left to right, and as they mature, they become more and more productized, and ultimately kind of like a utility as they're more standardized. So there's this movement that you see throughout the technology landscape. But then there's another one that I'm really fascinated with, is that as you get closer to the customer, you need differentiation. You need you actually need to address the complexity of the market. And as you're trying to create value, you need to be different from the others. So then as you go that way, you're more standardizing. As you go that way, you're more differentiating. And if you're buying a product, you're normally in this space where you're looking at something that is more and more standardized, and like you can make a lot of money here. This is why we talk about APIs as products. But here in this space, ultimately it becomes a commodity game until you eventually have a utility. So if you, as the owner of a DevPortal team, if you're managing a DevPortal team, I don't think you really want to be in this commodity business. I don't think you want to be the implementer of a commodity technology. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using commodity technologies. What it does mean, I think, is that you need to be looking at how can you keep racing in the value chain? How can you keep adding new layers to your value chain so that you can stay relevant and can contribute to differentiation of your organization? So, and as you probably already can guess, out-of-the-box products, they can be building stones to help you build differentiation, but they can't actually give you differentiation. An out-of-the-box product will not provide differentiation for you. It's what you do with out-of-the-box products that creates the differentiation that helps your company to stand out. And that's why I think really successful teams, they're here. They're close to the customer. They're looking at ways to do something different, and they're more contextualized and better adjusted to the customer. Now, the customer today might be a developer. Tomorrow, that might be the end customer that you're servicing with APIs through some sort of automated solutions or something like that. This is also why we, as Pronovix, we've chosen to serve here rather than here, because we want to help our customers to be successful and not just to provide ROI for the companies that are buying from us, to help our champions to be successful. Yeah, and then, but then you end up with this puzzle journey, and I'll skip over this because it's a little bit of marketing. But basically, what we do is we go on a journey with our customers, and we have these composable extensions that help you to address different ways to do the different patterns that are necessary, or at least we're building out this library. This is a recent realization, is that that's what we're doing as a formerly consulting company, but that is somewhere sitting in between consulting and productization, and so that we can help build portals that adapt with our customers. And then, yeah, we have this extensions that give control over the roadmap to our customers. But enough about the marketing thing. If you want to hear more about this, get in touch. I'm happy to explain how this works exactly, how our extension model works, and you know how we're going on the journey together with the customers. Wording map again. So yeah, I'm really excited about this stuff. I've had colleagues giving me grief about it, but I think it's a very useful tool to understand some of these big movements. And like for example, you know, should you take an off-the-shelf product or should you build something custom? And when should you do what? And how do you do that exactly? It's really, really interesting. Also, like, what is the future of developer portals once you start working with AI, maybe doing some integrations automatically, or when end customers start using APIs directly without a developer necessarily? We'll see how fast all of this goes. There's lots of problems with the automatically generated stuff. Personally, I would not put automatically generated codes, like an AI bot that is generating codes for customers. I would not do that unless I have very good documentation so that the quality of the generated code can be really high. But even then, there's still a chance that this is not going to be accurate, and then that can be problematic. So there's a lot of caveats around all of that. But what we can look at is what happens if we start moving up the chain. What if we start having AI agents that are starting to use, or agents, or well probably, I'm not sure if it's agents, because agentic AI is a very specific thing. But when you start consuming APIs and all the other interfaces using AI solutions, and I think that there's a possibility to go up in the value chain and to turn your developer portal in a solution catalog, where it's kind of like a marketplace, but a marketplace is basically, so I don't like the word marketplace, API marketplace for sure not, because to me, it's too easy to turn it into a dumping ground, like a flea market for APIs. And then that's also the expectation for your management, is like marketplaces where people market stuff and sell stuff. So we're going to make money here on other people's stuff. And there's lots of problems around it. I've talked about this in the past. Again, if you want to hear more about this, happy to talk more why I believe that. But I think it's what I think is going to be more valuable, and that I think that we're on the cusp of creating, is turning developer portals and documentation sites into solution catalogs, or solution bots, or solution centers, or something like that that are learning the patterns that your products, potentially with complementary products, can be used in to address specific problems, and that can accelerate people in finding out, like, how do you do a certain thing. Similarly, for your colleagues on the inside, agent catalog, well, you could call it an automation portal. Last week I was in Paris with a customer, and they have their REST APIs, their async APIs. Now they're also adding their iPaaS flows, integration flows into a single portal. And I was talking with them about, what if you also add agentic workflows into that portal? Then instead of having an integration portal, which is only relevant and useful for developers normally, unless you have like no code solutions, but you could start calling this an automation portal, where people go to automate tasks that they're working on in their organization. And then our work that we're doing, or that you're doing as the leaders of a developer portal team, can evolve to encompass like a next layer in the value chain, so that you're not only doing this, not only doing the hidden thing. Doing a platform can be very valuable in an organization that is heavily IT driven, and that is built around that. But if that is not the case, then I think it's important to start looking at, like, what is going to be your way to go up in the value chain. So then you can bring your API documentation and your APIs together with your solution documentation. You can have an agent catalog. And if you're not familiar with agentic AI, this is what the whole AI community is going crazy about. 2025, they've declared as the year of agentic AI, and I'll talk more about that on the next webinar. But then you can also have your agent catalog, or problems that need to be solved by agents catalog on that portal. You can start having also streamlined order and access request flows inside that same space, so that people don't need to, like, go from one place to the next to be able to address a problem. And also, in that portal, you could use agents to augment content, like to extract semantic entities, and to automate the creation of highly structured content. You could generate. We have this. We've done this in-house where we generate business documentation from open API spec files, but you could also be looking at, you know, Confluence or something where you're extracting content. You can import content into your portal. Maybe you can even schedule agents. You know, I don't know if you have ideas about other things you might want to do. I'm happy to talk about that. I'll be doing a podcast interview for the API Resilience podcast in an hour from now, with a good friend from the Drupal community, Jeff Eaton, about structured content and semantic caching. It's a I have got a slide about it, but and then there's also facilitating of agents, or of AI in general, is where you can have a catalog of models, catalog of agents, but also where your documentation site becomes a sort of AI caching layer. That's where you are taking all the knowledge that is sitting in support requests that are sitting in Confluence or sitting in code repositories, and you extract structured format of that, maybe a subset of your documentation, but that is well discoverable and findable, that will accelerate AI. If you start using AI to do certain tasks in your organization, that will accelerate that process, because it's really expensive to run. So agents are really cool and exciting, but if you see like how many times they're trying to access, like I've seen one example where, you know, like 20 tries or something like that until success. Like if you have 20 API calls to get to a single result, it's going to massively increase your API costs. So having clear documentation, and having a way to consume the documentation easier will save compute costs. It will increase or reduce the response time, so you get a fast response. And you can also start thinking about ways to use that to say like, well, this documentation is no longer valid because you know, we've got a new version of the product that came out. And then you can say like, well, all of these pre-processed answers no longer apply. It's basically caching layer, but then using developer portals as a sort of public cache for large language models that organizations are using out there somewhere to interact with the knowledge that your organization provides. There's another really cool thing, but I don't have time to explain this part. This Stigmergy and Stigmergic encoding is like, how do you develop knowledge in a distributed way? Again, if you want to talk about any of this, happy to have a one-on-one chat.